everyone, and welcome to our training, How Good Government CX Can Drive Big Economic Outputs. Hello. By way of introduction, my name is Emily Jarvis, and I'm the Senior Manager for Events here at GovLoop. And today I have the added pleasure of also being your moderator, so thanks so much for joining me. And I want to say a special thank you to our partners at Granicus for helping us put on this session today. So let's get right to it because responsive government services that prioritize customer experience and engagement help build strong local economies. And when residents and business owners and community leaders interact meaningfully with local government services, they help shape a more responsive and resilient economic future. However, aligning your government to learn those expectations can be challenging. So, today, our experts will share how improving customer experience can drive that economic equity and create trust by aligning government agencies together with the private sector. It is going to be a wonderful conversation. But before we jump into all of that, I do have a few housekeeping items to go over. First things first, we have some great resources available for you on the console under that resources button along the bottom panel. This is where you can also find out a little bit more about our speakers, so make sure you check out those learning opportunities. If you need access to the closed captioning feature, just look for that show captions icon, and that's where you'll find that added accessibility. Of course, we hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but they can and do happen. And if they do, send us a message through that Q&A tab, and my colleague Jessica will get you all sorted out. You can use that same tab to ask our experts questions, and we want your questions. We want them early and we want them often. So don't you dare be shy. You can also, of course, engage with your fellow attendees using that chat button, and we want to hear from you there. I'm logging in from Rockville, Maryland. Tell me where you're logging in from. And finally, we are recording this training, so check your inboxes tomorrow because we'll email you a link so you can watch the entire session on demand. All right, with all of that housekeeping out of the way, I want to introduce you to our speakers. Joining us, we have Charlotte Lee, who's the strategic lead for CX and innovation at Granicus. And we also have David Peacock, who's a senior advisor and for the future tourism group within Granicus's Simple View. So thank you both so much for being with us today. And Charlotte, I'm going to start with you because this is a big topic we're talking about here. So I need a little bit of a foundation. When it comes to opportunity, what is the opportunity for governments, especially those at the local level, to really drive some economic impact by focusing on things like CX?
Well, thank you so much for hosting this, Emily. I am so glad to be here. Um, I'm almost a little nervous at your intro because because this webinar, this session was born out of pure curiosity and love of two different topics and areas that are emerging right now in customer experience and in destination tourism. And David and I have these one-on-ones, and we go into these very extraordinary webs of ideas and concepts that we are like, gosh, I want other people in this conversation. I'd love to see who might be interested in this conversation. So this is definitely a webinar that we would love everyone's like ideas and like what comes to mind. And I think that the premise is that we have so much innovation happening. Obviously, things are super disruptive and changing very rapidly. And if it is not changing rapidly and not disruptive for you somehow, please let us know how you're pulling that off, because all of us are across the board just facing a lot of opportunity and challenges. And I think what we think would be success by the end of this webinar is if people walked away thinking, oh, that was really interesting. And first of all, and I might be able to look at my role. And when I looked at sort of the attendees list, potential assistive attendees, it was very diverse and very from all the way from federal to local government to like USDA, patent trademark office and and local governments. And I know that this also gets played asynchronously throughout. So the diversity of audiences were incredible. So what we're trying to talk about is how resident experiences or customer experience, government experience, and visitor experience are quite intertwined and linked, and maybe the biggest driver of economic success for us in the coming, what we're calling mega decade. So I'm super excited to be here with my very brilliant colleague, David Peacock, from the tourism side as we explore sort of the interwovenness of government experience and tourism and the economic impact that we can have if we start building the coalition together. David,
Yeah.
did you want to add to?
Yeah, I mean, the great intro. All I've got to add is the diversity of the speakers list speaks to sort of the mission on government services side and tourism side over the last 5 years, even a decade. The idea that multiple stakeholders across places, from the government side, from the tourism side, from the retail and the commercial side, are essential to the future of destinations is now playing out as real. We've probably on both sides of this coin spent about 5 years really engaging our communities, whether it's government or tourism. And we're really at that point, and I can give you this from a global perspective. I spend most of my time between here and Europe looking at best cities. We're at that point where the engagement piece is there. We're engaged with our cities and our citizens and our retailers. Now we have to move into action. And I don't want to heavy up on World Cup here, but events sometimes are catalytic in allowing us as city governments, state governments, or as tourism bodies to do things that we weren't doing. And the kind of work going on over the next year and a half around World Cup are real opportunities that we'd get to them anyway, but sometimes they've been accelerated by events. So I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad when I look at the diversity of that invite list, I mean, everyone from city governments to the Marine Corps to the FDA to the FAA, this is really important to independent suppliers. So thanks for being here. Know that the rest of the people on this call with you come from literally fully across the spectrum, and we'll be speaking a little bit to that.
Awesome. So I want you both, and Charlotte, I'll start with you, but David, I want your insights as well. I want you to break this down for us a little bit because we're talking about CX and economic vitality. What is the role that you see government playing here as it comes to these, mega events, this mega decade? Charlotte, where do you see CX or UX playing a role in kind of the economic vitality question?
So let's dig into what mega events are and go to the next slide. Um, Mega events, mega decade are two sort of new industry words that I have run across several times as I was doing my homework for thinking about how Granicus shows up for our customers and the addressing of the catalytic events that our customers are facing. So the next mega decade of mega events refers to a series of international and regional activity that is going to generate and be constant catalysts for regions and governments to have to respond to. So previously, when Granicus approached sort of our technology and our innovation, we didn't think about like the macro events that are happening there. We thought about like the overall challenge of engagement, the overall challenge of feedback, and the overall challenge of digital transformation as topics in and of itself. But now what we're trying to do is shift our lens and create a new filtered look at actually the spike in innovation, the spike of digital transformation is because these things are happening that are fundamentally changing the way that our government has to respond. And I sometimes equate this, and it might not be the best analogy, but it's the way that my parents bought patio furniture for the first time when my grandparents were coming into town, and we always needed it and we always complained about it. But it was only with the idea that visitors might come and need a place to stay. They said, okay, fine, we will invest in this patio furniture. And this is, fortunately and unfortunately, the type of economic and policy catalyst that drive governments to change. And so we thought these things should be together. And that's sort of the framing around the transformation we're making internally at Granicus, and with the opportunity have been to bring in the Simple View team to this discussion. This is how we can actually start to engage with our customers in a more meaningful way too. David, did
So,
you have?
yeah,
Yeah,
I
go
love it.
ahead.
I love it. So we've been working independently between Granicus and Simply, who Granicus acquired last year, on this idea of engagement. And I think it's fair to say in our communities, and you can see this in your communities, it's become incredibly important that the government of a community or the tourism of a community serve the people in that community, visitors and residents alike, but probably residents first. So what happens in those situations? Smart people in government, smart people in tourism start to look at the growth necessities of places. So let's look at a growing community west of Toronto that has a couple 100,000 people. Its proximity to a large city means in the next 10 years, its growth will outpace people who are further away from that center. And with that growth comes some really predictable things. You have more youth, you have more schools, you have more necessity for leisure activity. And so in good governance situations, the cities and the tourism body are looking at the same thing, which is what are the needs of this place 5 and 10 years from now, and how do we move successfully towards that with the tools and impacts that we have. Now you throw in AI and all the digital disruption, which I literally believe is as big as the initial digital disruption itself more than 15 years ago. And you say, how do we harness this? So put it simply, good tourism practice is to work with cities and say, hey, we can help us grow infrastructure here if we leverage the idea of visiting sport opportunities. That kind of development takes place regardless. Smart ECDev people, smart tourism people have been working on that for decades, and it's templated and it works. And if you're in one of these World Cup destinations, you know exactly what we're talking about. It's not your first rodeo. But what happens is catalytic events come along, and sometimes they come along and sometimes you create them. So something, and I'm going to reference World Cup again, something like World Cup really creates a 6-year window to really work on the things that we need as communities, whether it's more pitches, whether it's more coaches, whether it's more teaching. It's an artificial stimulus that actually accelerates something that we're going to need to do in the long run anyway. And again, as I said, we're always working on that regardless. And sometimes it's an event that comes along, like a World Cup. If we're a proximate destination to Dallas, it sort of lands in our lap. And sometimes we're that proximate destination. We actually create the event. If you think about smaller centers that have gone out and pitched on other events, whether it's an entertainment program. In Europe, I'd use the example European Song Contest. You know it's a catalytic event. You pitch on it, and you pitch on it in order to reap the benefits of the infrastructure you build around it. In World Cup, it's very much, if we're not a host city, what are we? Well, if we're proximate, we know that something like a World Cup requires massive amounts of infrastructure and fields for practice and support. We also know it creates huge impacts on transportation, security, smart tech in cities. And so we actually go out and bid on those things because it sometimes is the thing that galvanizes us as communities to create the kind of assets that we ultimately need in the long run anyway. So mega events, whether they land in our lap or whether we create them, are ways to accelerate things that we need for our communities. And if they're, if there's a central column for good government, it's there, serving our communities by anticipating need and leveraging all the resources that we can muster to get there. This time it's a little bit different. In 2025, we're testing a whole bunch of things literally in the world right now. I don't want to sound like, everyone else's broken record, but AI has a huge impact. When you look at the Bostons, the Dallas, the San Franciscos, of the world, they are literally looking at this as a proving ground for a whole bunch of new tech, especially in smart cities. And I'm not going to go on and on about smart cities, but we talked about smart cities 30 years ago. The tech has been in place to measure transit and things like that. Now the question is, can we actually make that meaningful in citizens and visitors' lives? And that's that CX piece. We've got the pieces, we've got the data. Now we need a proving ground for it. And sometimes these events are exactly that proving ground. This one, I think, is bigger than most.
I think the next slide, Emily, might help us frame the next sort of. Right.
Yeah.
So one of the really cool parts of having the Simple View team join us is new ways to look at things. And one of my favorite things has been this vitality wheel. And it has inspired. So I'm live in Washington, D.C., specifically Great Falls, and I am very used to the federal perspective. Like when federal government does something in 10 years, all these things have to follow and we set the course. And I have always had this very much bias towards like the bigness and scale of the way that federal government impacts things. But when I saw this vitality wheel come into play by a known expert and partner of our organization, I was so inspired, and it flipped the way I thought about government customer experience upside down. Because this idea of creating a visitable place turns into, or makes a place a more livable place, which creates opportunities for workforce to thrive, which creates investment opportunities that create impact. Those are all things that describe the experience economy in the macro, but with absolute implications for what customer experience oriented leaders and civic leaders and agency leaders are thinking about already. So we're speaking the same language. Okay, like a visit, like when you visit somewhere, when you whether you're attending a conference or going to a government benefits office, you're having this experience because you went somewhere. And so what I'm finding very interesting is the notion that somewhere that's livable is actually somewhere with good government experience, right? So, okay, so you could do all of these things for the visitor, right? Like we can make it easy for them to come, accommodate them in these wonderful ways. But then what makes a place visitable and then livable, right? And I think that the delta, the connection between that visit and live is government. And I think that that's a lot of where our audience must be coming from. This notion of better experience, what is the ROI? And for so long as a customer experience evangelist, I've had to sit there and be like, this is the ROI, more efficiency, self-sufficiency. And I've had to do so much. But when you zoom out and look at things through the whole lens, good experience creates economic impact, period.
And I just want to add to that. It's not like you're not all doing this and we're not all doing this. We've been doing it for years. We're just at this accelerated point on the tourism side where you look at great destinations, the tourism management boards, Darien, and they all have somewhat different structures. There's no two the same, honestly, anywhere in the world. They emerge out of their communities. They've been working like mad to work with government, and government does its best to understand where the tourism entity fits. What we're at now is realizing that exactly what Charlotte said here, livable places that inspire you to visit have to have a business proposition that makes them sustainable. And I'm excited about the next, you call it the mega decade. I'm even excited about the next 5 years as we really start to plumb the links between what place identity does in terms of influencing influx of new residents, what it does in terms of creating an economy that supports and grows that place and makes it a richer experience. Residents first, visitors second. But really, if you look at it, we're at this point where these two entities that work closely together are realizing we're completely overlapped. And I like the fact that you went to the community vitality wheel. This was developed years ago by Maura Gast in Irving, Texas. And it really does give us a focus in tourism that goes beyond heads and beds and counting people and overnights. It's about vital communities that are created in a way that spurs business. And I think we are sitting right on the precipice of the idea that the technology and the systems that we now have and the capabilities we have are about to supercharge this relationship. I'm very excited about a Granicus simple view alignment, because I think it was missing. And I'm going to say, if we didn't do it first, 5 years from now, somebody else would be doing it. But you can imagine when these two things fit perfectly. And a lot of us live in the places we live because we chose them, because we visited them. I recently moved myself, and it was a visit that spurred me to go to the place I live in. And I realized the place I live in is wonderful because it had visitors. Because if you took them away, we'd have about a third as many resources, restaurants, attractions, et cetera. So this idea of livable places and the community vitality wheel, it's the realization of something we've been working for on both sides of this ledger for literally decades.
I think.
Gotcha. So, go ahead,
No,
Charlotte.
go ahead, Emily.
I was going to say, what you two have laid out makes sense. And I remember, as a kid going to Salt Lake City, and then the years directly following kind of their Olympics, and seeing the infrastructure that the stadiums and all the development that was done there that is still being used to this day, was really cool to see firsthand. So what you all are saying makes total sense to me. And I can see the connection between kind of what you're talking about from a vitality standpoint to kind of the end point there of being some of those economic drivers. But there are obviously barriers in realizing that goal. And I think I'd like to spend just a little bit of time talking about what are some of those barriers that exist in kind of realizing this potential and these possibilities, and what are some maybe strategies that agencies could employ to potentially work around some of those barriers? So Charlotte, I'll start with you and kind of highlighting some of the barriers, and then maybe we can talk strategy.
Okay. I think that it's going to sound big, and then I want people to take a second to process the bigness of it, and then see themselves, the listeners, the audience right now, as a resident of wherever they are, as well as their role within the customer experience sphere or the tourism, wherever you're coming from, like your workplace role and your resident role, right? Like all of these roles in our contribution to the vitality wheel at large. Then I want to go to the next slide, and I want to talk about something that I think is representative and interesting around the role of residents in soft diplomacy and the success of an event. So events cannot be successful if the citizens or the residents who are hosting are not engaged or informed or want this. So I'm going to give a really interesting example. I want to watch the video I have, and then I think we could come back and discuss the
we begin with news and what could be a big event for Northeast Ohio.
Tonight, Cleveland is making a major bid to host the Special Olympics, which could bring in thousands of visitors and millions of dollars to our area.
Minnie Hicks now joins us live from downtown with the latest on this. Minnie, good evening.
Yeah, well, good evening, Russ and Lena. So we attended that news conference earlier today, and it's extremely unique, mainly because it's pretty rare for us to hear about the bids the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission is considering. But this is different, and the commission says it needs the community's help.
We need you, Cleveland.
People across the Buckeye State will see this video a lot in the next few weeks.
Let's bring the Special Olympics U.S. Games to the land.
This video is what the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission is using to get people to pledge their support for Cleveland's bid in hosting the Special Olympics USA Games in 2030.
If we get this event, it would be, and it really is by almost any measure, one of the largest and most important events that this community can host.
According to the commission, the Special Olympics takes place every 4 years in a major city and welcomes more than 5,500 athletes and coaches from all 50 states, plus the Caribbean.
The event would have another 10,000+ friends or family coming to Cleveland for over a week, over 100,000 fans and spectators.
With these crowd numbers, Gilbert says the Special Olympics could bring in more than $70 million for the local economy, and beyond the monetary value, will leave a lasting legacy showing that Cleveland is an inclusive city.
0.8 to go, and that will do it.
And despite Cleveland hosting other major sporting events like the Women's Final Four, the NBA and MLB All-Star Games, the hard part about this process is other cities are putting in a bid. 3 News has learned Nashville is one of those cities, and that's why the commission is asking for the public's help. They're hoping 10,000 people will sign up to volunteer, their biggest ask yet.
When we just had the Pan Am Masters Games, again, big event, 4,000 athletes, 79 countries, 48 states. We had about 1,000, just under 1,000 volunteers. The RNC, I believe, was 2,200? 2,500. So think about that. 4 times the number of volunteers than Republican convention that we hosted.
So, Russ, this will be a long process.
There and then go back to that slide around citizen diplomacy. I'd love some thoughts in the chat of what this conjures up. But David, this is the intersection, isn't it? When they
it is, and it's
yeah.
I'm thrilled you use Cleveland. So I'm going to go back all the way back to 2013. In 2013, I got to keynote in New Orleans with Destination Think, which is a really progressive conference about the future of tourism. And the other person speaking was a young person from Cleveland. And in 2013, getting out in front of social media was a really big deal. We were disrupted in tourism. We were, used to booking systems and web pages, but we weren't really caught up in social media. And Cleveland did one of the best jobs in the early days of social media of engaging residents to tell their story, not the destination organization saying this is what we are or this is where you should go. They used residents as a backdrop. So I'm not surprised to see you choose the Special Olympics. And if you think about it, the choice of that event, it's a very different event that positions them differently. I know a fair bit about Cleveland. I live in the Northeast. It is a place that is inclusive and welcomes all sorts of diversity. So I'm not surprised to see you use it as an example. And I do love, that they stack up the other events, but somehow this one's different. I will say that Cleveland's been very good at creating legacy around the things they do. How does this tech endure? How does actually doing the Special Olympics manifest itself in the community later? Well, it doesn't if you don't engage residents, and they aren't part of sharing that story to begin with. So that's one thing I do love about major sporting events is the volunteer base is massive. Just the recruitment of volunteers in a situation like the Special Olympics or the World Cup is community building. I will also say, though, that once you've got that community attention, you have to work with them. And we've spent a lot of time over the past decade, sometimes in tourism, building networks. And now the real challenge is keep them running and put them to work, but they need a job. They need to join a sports commission. They need to they need to become part of an accessibility program. They need to see that tools that they created for those projects have a legacy. There's some stuff going on in I think it's Seattle this year that I just love coming out of the World Cup stuff. And I don't know if you guys have heard of tactile broadcasting technology. Anybody on the panel? Not even you, Charlotte? Okay, so it is really cool. It's embedded in the Seattle hosting position, and it uses this group called One Court, and it's for visually impaired people, and it's an interface to listen and watch and feel what's going on the field. The intention of that piece is for it to be a legacy piece. It's not a one and gone, hey, you come in and it's the last time you see it. So those kind of opportunities are resonant with, what the World Cup is, but certainly resonant with things like the games you're talking about. And I think the challenge this time around for all of us as we go into 2026, and it's not just a challenge for our destinations or a challenge for our governments, it's actually a challenge for FIFA as well. This is a proving ground for the next wave of technology that will enable engagement and actually deliver value. There's the other point. Enable engagement is one thing, delivering value through engagement. And these tech pieces are fantastical, but they have to be proven and we have to test them. And I think your CX question is exactly analogous to that.
I do want to then, so a lot of times when I show up to speak internally, I say I give off substitute teacher energy where I like roll in the video cart and like everyone can watch a movie instead of so I want to show everyone another video to illustrate now the crux of things.
We begin with news and what could.
Well, if you're getting ready for your summer Euro trip, you may not get the warm welcome you're hoping to receive. Thousands in Spain, Italy, and Portugal are protesting tourism. This was the scene in Barcelona, Spain on Sunday. Protests are taking place across southern Europe against over-tourism, with one group reportedly encouraging demonstrators to bring water pistols to their rally. Public frustration has been mounting over what protesters describe as unsustainable levels of tourism, accused of driving up living costs, displacing residents from affordable housing, and overcrowding city centers. In 2024, approximately 26 million tourists visited Barcelona, a city with a population of just 1.6 million. A city-conducted survey revealed that 31% of residents viewed tourism as harmful, the highest percentage recorded to date. Some organizers have dismissed the counter-argument that tourism supports local economies by generating jobs and revenue.
Nosotros necesitamos un turismo responsable, no un macroturismo, sino un turismo que respete la salud, respete el trabajo, respete la dignidad y respete a todas las trabajadoras que trabajamos en este sector, ¿no?, turístico, porque lo único que nos trae es pobreza. Nosotras no tenemos beneficio de este turismo, de este macroturismo. Nos afecta en la vivienda porque cada vez más nos echan de los pisos para volverlos turísticos.
Yo creo que simplemente hay que pararlo.
I think we can stop there. And then I want to shift to the next slide because how did it go wrong? How did it go wrong, David? So the idea of like, we need your help. We need to bring in these tourists. We need the economic impact. It's going to be good for you. We're going to invest in accessible sporting grounds and improved bus stops. We're going to clean the streets. We're going to do all this stuff if you just help us get this bid. And then over the course of the next years following, it doesn't go well. And they're saying it is doing the opposite. It's creating the opposite of vitality. What do you think?
I'm gonna jump in, and this one's really interesting and personal to me. Barcelona sees a tremendous influx of visitors. You know, that number that you quoted in the millions is phenomenal, and that alone suggests a pressure. And if you want to see an even bigger version of that, look at Heidelberg in Germany, 40,000 residents and 13 million visitors a year. Look at that ratio. I'm going to say, how does that happen? And I'm going to push back because someone pushed back on me this year. I'm a former media and television person, and I'm going to say one thing: bad news travels faster than good, and that's a really important statement here. I was in Europe about 12 months ago with a good friend of mine who actually runs Catalonia and Barcelona tourism, and we were at a conference, and he came up to me and he was red in the face and angry. He said, "I'm so angry, David." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, water pistols and things." And I said, "Yeah, that'd be upsetting." He goes, No, I'm angry because that's not the way it's actually happening." I said, "Well, no, I saw the pictures. I saw the film clips." And he, like my friend in France, when I complained about the farmer strike, said, "You're a former news guy. Wake up. It's tight shots and loud audio." I'm not saying it's not happening. There are people disgruntled, but we certainly aren't getting out in front of it. And that was Pablo's point. We're not getting out in front of it and telling a real story of economic impact and really creating a shared perception of the value of what those things bring to our community. Those people are legitimately complaining, but we do have a tendency in the media to really go after the negative stories. So I'm not saying the negative isn't there, but I am saying where we fail is we are not advocates of the positive story. We're not articulating the benefits or displaying those well enough, especially to those people who are complaining. But use the example of the small town I moved to. If there wasn't tourism, there would be 2 restaurants, not 11. You know, Barcelona is a massive city, and he said this is taking place in small corners of the city. And I said, but it's still real. And he said, yes, but we failed to mitigate that with the rest of our story. So, will the World Cup create congestion and difficulties? Yes, and then that's why we're planning around transit things and smart communication and smart travel and comms, because all of these things really happen. But I encourage us really to say, you know, when the myth exceeds the legend, when the myth exceeds the truth, we print the myth. And what we've got to do is make sure that we tell the real story and not the myth of what's going on. World Cup will have a tremendous economic effect. It'll have some bad actors and there will be difficulties. And that's why we work so closely with our security and our transit authorities. But the other thing we've really got to do this time around in a world of distributed media that tends to happen in 15-second sound bites is make sure the other side of that story is told.
I love the other side of the story when you bring that up, because I'll go to the next slide. This article is really great, by the way. So if people are interested in getting that slide, it was really profound of like what the importance of communicating to residents. And I think that's why I'm going to move us along to this slide. I bring this slide out sometimes when I meet with customers around the big idea connecting to the tactical strategy, Emily, as you were saying, right? And it's easy for me to say this, whether I represent Granicus or not, that it is 100% more communication. It is stakeholder management. It is resident engagement. It is managing the journey, which if I have CX people on the phone, they know, why do we make journey maps? So that we can guide the journey and manage expectations along the way. If no communication has gone out, and this is true for a lot of host and halo communities and cities, what we're hearing from our customer is that actually we haven't sent anything out. So actually we don't know what we're going to do to, there's not been a playbook, there's not been a blueprint in which we can do this. So that's sort of why we created the early iteration of our World Cup guidebook, which I think is available. That was in direct response to, we don't know what we should be doing. And across all of our solution sets, we're like, well, you got to communicate, right? So that's sort of where we're falling here, because yes, these are macroeconomic challenges, and David and I can certainly go on and on about like all of the esoteric, but ultimately when it comes to federal agencies, the commissions and the parks and recreations and the health and human services, this challenge has to be approached as a stakeholder change management communications issue that will have humongous ROI.
Well, and I want to be really clear, because we could have been talking that same talk 10 years ago and we'd be talking about stories and narrative. This is different. We live in an age of smart cities, gov tech, great CX. The thing about communications now that's different is communications can actually deliver value, and they've got to be backed by data. And that's where I get really excited about the intersection of these two companies, and also about things like World Cup. You are going to see data used to validate more transparently than you have in your past. And you're going to have to see that, because otherwise things are impeachable with vaporware and ideas. And we have to get to a place as a world, and I know you share this all with me, where there's some kind of validation of truth taking place. And the way we get there is to use data-based information that can be validated. We're right now, we're being flooded with so much AI generated stuff that it's hard to tell truth from fiction. That will change. We will start to rank and validate, even if it's just personally, because we start to use our own AI agents differently. But the idea that we have this value in cities, we have it in tourism data for visitation, and we need to use this to actually create the narrative that explains how this changed the world. Like a great example, I was talking to Seattle on Monday at an event called the Certified Tourism Ambassador Group. They have built 12 mini pitches in the last 3 years. And it's because they see disadvantaged areas of the city not being able to get engaged. So they've created this soccer swell. And I just want to put that in context. In something like a World Cup, you've got this massive 3-year run up. You've also got this massive 3-year run down afterwards, when the halo effect of having a World Cup says, wow, this community really embraced soccer or football, whichever one you want to call it, depending where you're from. And now we're going to take advantage of it. We've built leagues and teams. We've got kids who are wanting to go on and play in university. And I want us to look at these things. None of these things are a one and done. We sometimes look at the event and say, how did that go? It's like, well, how did it go 3 years before this? And some of us will sit here and say, oh, we haven't been really doing, World Cup for 3 years. The host cities have been. They've been planning these things for 3 and 4 years. They have massive planning communities. As you move out further, some of us come a little later to the game, but we also need to recognize we need to continue those comms post-event, because the halo effect of having that event here is something that changes our communities. And again, then we have to commit to communicating that and nurturing it over the post 3 years. And again, I think we're at a really interesting point in the world of AI where communications is actually capable of delivering value. And I think that's a part that we really have to unearth and work. And these events give us a chance to do that, especially in the CX world.
Oh, Emily, go ahead.
No, it's all you.
Can we go back to the article just one more time? Tourism is a deal. Local people let you in return for you providing some benefits. So you really should put as much money in genuinely local hands as possible. You're there as a guest, and the return is financial. But I don't think that should be a hardship. You'll get a different experience, right? And so it's like, oh my gosh, they nailed the intersection that we are talking about. I feel like when I got into this world of customer experience, HCD, I used to get a lot of criticism for it being, or feedback, it being really theoretical and like framework and in the sky kind of ideas, right? What is customer experience is, because we used to not be able to articulate as well. And this is why I love the tourism side of things. Now we can articulate really well the experience of something has a direct ROI. And I think that this is something tremendous for the CX community. If I have some of my colleagues who are joining us today from like the traditional, what I call big C, big X world, that experience portion of it is what we're striving for. It is not digital forms. It's not, like service calls. It's not, we're not even talking about, text message. We're not talking about anything technical. It's the notion that we can't be truly transformative change agents without the context of the macroeconomic and community building that it is really a part of. Like, you are not supposed to, I guess, do anything that's out of your line with your principles and values, right? In general. And I think that CX has a calling for people who really understand, like, we can make things better for people in government. But my God, there is a gap between how we talk about experience design and the actual impact that it will have.
Well, Charlotte, and I think that you've brought us full circle in 45 minutes, because that's the community vitality wheel. This is the point. We were not, and when Maura proposed this years ago, most of the world was not ready to hear that a great place to visit, a great place to live, a great place to live is a great place to do business, a great place to do business, a great place to invest. That was just too soft. What we wanted was heads and beds, how many numbers, what was the percentages, what was our yield, et cetera. I think we're at a place now, you've just articulated, how do we measure that? Well, the community vitality wheel, we accept that the experience has an ROI called a great place to live and invest in and do business. And what's upon us now is we have to find different ways to articulate those values again. And I think these tools are all going to help us. Our CX is really important. If you live in a destination, is it serving you? If I'm a dog owner, is it serving me? If I'm a soccer player, those questions really have to do with quality of life. And I think we're ready to measure them on a different set of variables. But what I encourage the audience to do today is say this: you all work in such diverse sectors, from what I've seen on the list, from turkeys to transportation in this list. It's your imagination about what you experience in your destinations and how you could change them. We're going to think about how we measure success differently. And that's not on any one industry or any one organization. It's us living in our places to define success and have our say back into government. The democratic process, yes, but not every 4 years, but on an ongoing basis. We're at the point where we can have feedback loops that are continuous and ongoing. And that's a real shift in how we govern.
It
Um,
is.
Emily, I want to take us to the last slide where we can kind
Okay.
of wrap up. I told you we could get through it in 45 minutes.
You were right.
I
We're almost there.
Emily, did you want to frame something?
Yeah, so I think, as we head into the end of today's session, I think I've got kind of two closing questions for both of you. And the first is what we're talking about here today is a pretty big concept, as you guys have both noted, but with really kind of practical implications. Charlotte, you were talking about some of the communication practices. David, you were mentioning some of the ways that technology is playing a role here. And those are just kind of micro examples. So for two closing questions here, what should local governments or governments at large who are listening to today's session, what should they be thinking about if their organizations aren't making this alignment? They're not quite as connected as we would like them to be, perhaps. What are some strategies or best practices for moving their organization down or through this vitality wheel? And then two, what do you want them to take away from today's session? So Charlotte, I'll start with you.
I really want
Go ahead.
to just reiterate one key point is that trust, the activities around trust building should feel intuitive because we are residents, recipients, beneficiaries at different times in our lives. And the effect that we want to have as designers of or decision makers or innovators is that we invest in very consciously things that make people feel that government is on their side. And that sometimes that is a matter of responsiveness, reminding those things that are actually really hard to do in mass. That is where technology can help, right? Like it should scale the effect that you want rather than to seek the tool itself.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what I would want people to start thinking about and also walk away from. And our teams would love to have discussions with any of you around what we mean by more communications and how to do that, because I think it's teamwork. None of us have done this before. This is my first time being alive. So it requires collaboration. And I think I would just love to open that gate up of, okay, what do we as people and residents want to rebuild the communities that might have gotten lost as things have changed really fast, or audiences, segments of people that have maybe gotten lost as we change really fast, and how might we invest for impact when it comes to technology.
I love it. I'm going to borrow a bit from the CX and the government side. There's nowhere I've worked in the world in the last 15 years where the most success wasn't coming from tourism that was well aligned with civic purposes and civic government. And we have a maxim we use in tourism all the time now, which is the best destinations are the result of engaged communities that take an active role in collectively shaping their future. If you can use that as a North Star, active communities that take an active role in collectively shaping their future, people see themselves in that, they get involved in that. I think the intersection between good governance, good government, and tourism is essential. People see themselves through the lens of tourism. They see themselves as the place that people visit, and government enacts that. One of the most fun projects I've worked on the last 2 years is in Helsinki. This is a city where the city government is 30,000 people. This is a very different system from ours. It's the single largest employer in Finland, is the city of Helsinki. And the amount of work they're doing on aligning data and opportunity and civic good is remarkable. And I just say, even them, we have to remind them to go back and look at their strategy and ask themselves, what are you trying to achieve? And they have brilliant strategies. They want to be the most sustainable destination in the world. They've been working on this thing called the GDS index for 8 years, and they finally won it. And when they say, what do we do next? I say, no, go back to your strategy. Your strategy will guide you. You all have great strategies as tourism destinations. You have to articulate them. You feed them to your board. You all have governance principles and objectives in place as a city or a state. If you go back to your strategy and you ask, how does this event and this alignment strengthen our strategy and make us achieve our goals better, sooner, stronger, faster? But don't forget those strategies. We've all worked really hard on them. Sometimes we leave them in a drawer and forget to dust them off. Those are our aspirational principles. Those are your North Star. And then I will say this, you cannot do alone. Go back to that idea, engage communities, do better than unengaged communities. And COVID was a great example of that. You can see very clearly in COVID, places like Fort Worth that had engaged networks of stakeholders well beyond the usual tourism stakeholders did better during that crisis and did better in recovery after it. The future is about engaged communities, and the civic and tourism alignment is an essential piece of that. So I want you to understand how important your role is, and then I want you to do a little bit of 1969 NASA, and I want you to use your imaginations. We're going to do things differently in the next decade. We're not simply going to ask AI to count things we were counting in spreadsheets. We're going to ask it different questions about the places we want to live and the people we want to be.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for sharing your insights with us today. I saw there were a few questions in the chat. You can find this slide deck in the resources tab. If for some reason you don't see it, don't fret. We'll send it as part of the follow-up email as well. But thank you so much, Charlotte and David, for sharing your insights with us today. Just a few quick reminders before you log off and head on with your merry day. First, like I said, we will be sending you a link to the on-demand version of this training tomorrow, so you'll be able to view it again or share it with one of your colleagues who it might be of interest to. But on behalf of GovLoop and Granicus, I hope you enjoyed today's session. And as always, we really appreciate and value the work that you do. So thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us this afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at our next training. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Charlotte. Thanks, Sam.